welcome to Keys to the Kingdom. I'm Marissa. I hope you're all having a wonderful Tuesday afternoon. We are going to continue our Book of Jubilees study today. We are actually in chapters 15 through 20 today. We're going to be reading chapters 15 through 20 today. So I hope you're ready for that. And as always, any questions, any comments, any suggestions or ideas that you would like to interject into the conversation or to the video, just leave them in the comment section and I'll address them as I see them. And yeah, so hopefully we'll get through this book, and then we'll probably be doing our reflections from the wilderness come to me video pretty soon, because I do have a book giveaway coming up. I have 4 copies of the Come Unto Me book by James P. Gills. It's a really good book if you're in a season of feeling like you're in the wilderness, wanting to draw closer to God. Things seem uncertain. You know, maybe he's just trying to get you alone so that you can be with him and him alone, so that he can strengthen your faith in him as your provider, your protector, and your father, your Abba. So that's going to be coming up, but we're going to get through our Jubilees study first. And like I said, today we're in chapters 15 through 20. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to put the scriptures up on the screen so you can follow along with me, unless you have the Book of Jubilees and you'd like to read yours. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 15. I'm going to go ahead and put it up on the screen here for you. All right, so we're starting with chapter 15, verse 1. And it says here, in the 5th year of the 4th week of this Jubilee, in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, Abram celebrated the feast of the first fruits of the grain harvest. So right here, it's showing you that Abraham celebrated the feast of first fruits. Okay, so this is pre-Torah, pre-Sinai. It's telling us that Abraham celebrated first fruits before it was commanded at Sinai. Okay, and it says, and he made new offerings on the altar, the first fruits of the produce to Yah, a heifer, a goat, a sheep on the altar as a burnt sacrifice to Yah. Their first fruit offering and their drink offering he offered on the altar with frankincense. And if you know anything about me, I love to point out all of the biblical essential oils that were used. It's interesting that these were actually part of the sacrifices that were on the altar. So here it's using frankincense. And it says, Yah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Elohim Almighty. Examine yourself and demonstrate yourself before me and be perfect. Okay, so that's, just like we see in the Bible where it says, be holy for I am holy. I will make my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you greatly. Abram fell on his face, and Elohim talked with him and said, my law is with you, and you will be the father of many nations. So right here, Yahuwah is making a covenant with Abram, and he's telling him things that are going to come to pass, and he's giving him promises. Okay? And look what it says. It says, my law is with you. Okay? Let's just pause here for a second. It says, my law is with you. So, again, I want to point out, this is pre-Sinai. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because a lot of people will say that the law was not given, or the full law was not given until Mount Sinai, and that prior to that, there was only, most people will say there were only 7 laws called the Noahide laws. I personally, in my opinion, based on my studies, disagree with that. I believe that Yahuwah's laws were in existence from the beginning. But it says, my law is with you, and you will be the father of many nations. So he's telling him something that's going to be years prior to it actually coming to pass. And just to point out, this is one of the ways that Yahuwah displays that he is God, is by telling us things before they happen. Okay? And them coming to pass. Neither shall your name any more be called Abram, but your name from now on, even forever, shall be called Abraham. So he changes his name from Abram to Abraham. So he adds a Hebrew letter in Abraham's name, which in Hebrew would be the Hey. For I have made you the father of many nations. I will make you very great. So look at what he's saying here. For I have made you a father of many nations. I have made you the father of many nations. He's saying this in the present tense, even though this has not happened yet. In fact, Abraham isn't even going to live to see all the nations that come from his loins. But Yahuwah says, I have made you the father of many nations. I will make you very great. And I will make you into nations, and kings shall come forth from you. I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations for an eternal covenant, so that I may be an Elohim to you. Remember that word Elohim just means God. And your offspring after you. You may possess the land where you have been a sojourner, the land of Canaan, and you will possess it forever. And I will be your Elohim. Yah said to Abraham, keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you, and circumcise every male among you, and circumcise your foreskins, and it shall be a token of an eternal covenant between me and you. So at this point in time, the circumcision was the sign of this covenant. In the 8th day you shall circumcise the child, every male throughout your generations, him that is born in the house, or him that you have bought with money from any stranger, whom you have acquired, who is not of your offspring. So everybody was supposed to be circumcised. He that is born in your house shall surely be circumcised, and those whom you have bought with money shall be circumcised. My covenant shall be in your flesh for an eternal ordinance. The uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin on the 8th day, that soul shall be cut off from his people, for he has broken my covenant. Elohim said to Abraham, as for Sarai your wife, her name shall no more be called Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her and give you a son by her, and I will bless him, and he shall become a nation, and kings of nations shall proceed from him. Abraham fell on his face and rejoiced, and said in his heart, shall a son be born to him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bring forth? Abraham said to Elohim, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Because, Abraham had Ishmael first. Ishmael was his firstborn, and at this point, this is the only child that he knows. And he's praying to God and, almost just saying to him, if only Ishmael might live before you. In other words, that he would choose to serve you. Elohim said, yea, and Sarah shall bear you a son, and you will call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him, an everlasting covenant, and for his offspring after him. As for Ishmael, also have I heard you. And behold, I will bless him and make him great and multiply him greatly. And he shall begat 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. I always thought it was interesting that Ishmael was going to have these 12 princes, And then later on in the next generation, Jacob also has the 12 tribes of Israel. I just always thought that was interesting. I don't know if, obviously 12 is a significant number in the word. I just think it's interesting that Ishmael has 12 and then Jacob also has 12. Hi, Mandy. So glad you can make it, sweetie. Yes, so glad you could be here. Yes, it is exciting. So it says, but my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you this time next year. So you see here, Isaac was the child of promise. Okay. And obviously Ishmael was not. He was a product of human means. Elohim ceased speaking with him, and Elohim went up from Abraham. Abraham did according as Elohim had said to him, and he took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and whom he had bought with his money, every male in his house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin. On the same day was Abraham circumcised, and all the men of his house, and all those he had bought with money from the children of the stranger were circumcised with him. This law is for all generations forever, and there is no variance of days, and no omission of 1 day out of the 8 days. For it is an eternal law, ordained and written in the heavenly tablets. So this is very interesting, because this is regarding the circumcision, and it's saying this law is for all generations, an eternal law, ordained and written on heavenly tablets. So, as of right now, we're just reading about Abraham. So, the tablets that were given to Moses aren't even in existence yet. This is saying that this law is written on heavenly tablets because Yahuwah's law is with him. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So his Word and his law are already with him. So his laws don't just appear here in the earth. His laws are with him even in the heavenly places. For everyone that is born, the flesh of whose foreskin is not circumcised on the 8th day does not belong to the children of the covenant which Yah made with Abraham, but instead they belong to the children of destruction. So he's saying, you are either circumcised and a part of the covenant with Yah, or you belong to the children of destruction. Nor is there any other sign on him that he is Yah's, but he is destined to be destroyed and killed from the earth and to be rooted out of the earth, for he has broken the covenant of Yah, our Elohim. So this is interesting because this is also calling the circumcision a sign that he is Yah's. Hi, Sherry. So glad you could make it, sweetie. My son was circumcised on the 8th day. Hallelujah. Yes, I think most people nowadays, I would venture to say the majority of people nowadays circumcise their children, although I'm not sure if they're doing it on the 8th day or not. Obviously, if you're in the believing community, you are probably making it the 8th day, but I'm not sure if the medical community does it on the 8th day or after, purposely. I'm not really sure. Mine was on the 3rd day. Yeah, Mandy, that's what I was kind of curious about, because unless you specifically request the 8th day, I think the medical community tries to do it right away, mostly because they're trying to rush you out of the hospital as fast as they can, and they don't want to keep any mamas and babies in there any longer than they have to. I didn't know what I know now, though. I'm actually surprised it was on the 3rd day, because what science has actually found out is that it's on the 8th day that the blood starts clotting on its own. And I always thought that was very fascinating, because Yahuwah said to circumcise them on the 8th day. And and obviously science finds out later on that that's when the baby's blood starts clotting. Mine was not because belief, but just happened that way. Oh, wow, that's so funny. So, I'm actually surprised the medical community doesn't. But like I said, they like to rush stuff, and they're just trying to get you out of the hospital and back home as quickly as possible. And they just have to put a little suture on there, and everything's fine. But Yahuwah knew that by the 8th day, the baby's blood would be clotting on its own and not prior to that. So I thought that was very interesting. All right, let's get back here. So it says here, all the messengers of the presence of Yah and all the messengers of sanctification had been created already circumcised from the day of their creation. Okay, let's slow down here because this is talking about messengers of the presence. So it's talking about angels here. Hold on. This is talking about angels. It says, all the messengers of the presence of Yah and all the messengers of sanctification have been created already circumcised from the day of their creation, and before the messengers of the presence of Yah and the messengers of sanctification, he has sanctified Israel, that they should be with him and with his pure messengers. All the messengers of the presence of Yah and all the messengers of sanctification have been created already circumcised from the day of their creation. So this is actually saying, so this is interesting. This is actually saying that the angels were created already circumcised. And that before the angels, and for the angels to see that Yahuwah has sanctified Israel by causing them to circumcise their sons and themselves, that they should be with him and his pure messengers. So it's saying with him and his pure angels, because those are the angels, the cherubim, whatever you would like to call them. But a lot of this is calling them messengers, although they act as messengers for Yahuwah. I think that is very interesting, because we do not see that in the original texts. This is something that's not found in Genesis. That the angels were created having already been circumcised. I think that's very interesting. So it says here, command the children of Israel and let them observe the sign of this covenant for their generations as an eternal law, and that they will not be rooted out of the land. For the command is ordained for a covenant, that they should observe it forever among all the children of Israel. For Ishmael and his sons and his brothers and Esau, Yah did not cause them to come to him, and he did not choose them. Although they are the children of Abraham, he knew them, but he chose Israel to be his people. He sanctified them and gathered them from all the children of men. For there are many nations and many peoples, and all are his. And over all nations he has placed spirits in authority to lead them astray from him. So let's just pause there for a second, because this is pretty interesting. Okay. So this is saying, I'm going to highlight this here for you. It's saying that Yahuwah sanctified them and gathered them from among all the children of men. For there are many nations and many peoples, and all are his. And over all nations he has placed spirits in authority to lead them astray from him. Wow, so it's saying that Yahuwah placed spirits in authority, and I'm sure those spirits are the fallen ones, or the Nephilim. Because remember, it said that one of the angels pleaded with Yahuwah and said, please leave a portion of us. And a tenth of them were left so that they could lead men astray. That was their job. And suffice it to say that obviously there were still men in Israel who were led astray. So basically, it seems that Yahuwah allowed a tenth of these fallen ones, these Nephilim spirit, these disembodied spirits, okay, to be allowed to lead men astray who were probably already on their way from God. You know, they were already not pursuing God. Yahuwah already knows the hearts of men anyways, but so now they're there. Now they're there, being allowed to lead men astray. Mandy says, wow, I just had a light go on. You're going to have to tell us what light that was, Mandy. Go ahead and share it. But that's interesting because we read in past chapters here in the Book of Jubilees where Yahuwah, one of the fallen angels had pleaded with Yahuwah to allow a tenth of them to stay so that they could lead men astray. So here we see this repeated again. And basically, and I just want to point out here really quick, if I can. I want to point out really quick that, okay, so yes, Yahuwah creates the Commonwealth of Israel, right? Okay. And even though there is sort of a bloodline, we know that evil people still came from Israel. And we know that God also brought in people into Israel from outside of that bloodline. So I want you to always remember that when God refers to Israel, and I know everybody wants to say it's just the bloodline of Israel. Israel are those who come into a covenant agreement with Yahuwah and have joined into the fold of Israel. Clearly, as we see throughout the Bible, there are people in Israel who did not worship Yahuwah, who were evil, and the people that were not of the bloodline of Jacob that came into Israel and served Yahuwah in a mighty way. We see that in Yahusha or Yeshua's bloodline, Jesus' bloodline. So just bear that in mind, like as we're reading this, these spirits were going to be allowed to lead astray those who were already astray. Does that make sense? They weren't just allowed to lead astray anybody. Mandy says, it all makes sense now. I always wanted to know where demonic forces come from, or ghosts, or whatever you call them. Yeah, so it would behoove you to read the first book of Enoch. So Enoch 1, I don't recommend reading the other Enochs because those are not the ones that we consider to be more legit, but that will also help you. But yeah, that's where they come from. So you had the fallen angels, okay, coming down and mating with the daughters of men, lusting after them, leaving their spiritual abode to come down on earth, mating with human fleshly women, and then that created the Nephilim. And even though God destroyed the Nephilim in the flood and the giants and so on, a portion of them were allowed, a portion of these beings were allowed to lead men astray spiritually because, remember, they're disembodied. This is a creation that was never supposed to happen. A union that was never supposed to be. So they are somewhat disturbed, disembodied spirits, and yeah, that's where they would come from, Mandy. That's why I love these books. I love details. Hallelujah. Although we do want to study them out, because sometimes if we want too much details, oh Lord, there's plenty of books out there that you could dabble into. We just want to make sure that we study it, we study the history of it, and that we read it and compare it, and that basically that it's not conflicting with scripture that we already know, conflicting with the scriptures that we already have. You're welcome, Mandy. All right, let's continue reading here, guys. All right, let's see here. But it says, "But over Israel I did not appoint any messenger or spirit, for he alone is their ruler. He will preserve them and require them at the hand of his messengers and his spirits, and at the hand of all his powers, in order that he may preserve them and bless them, that they may be his, and he may be theirs from now and forever." I announce to you that the children of Israel will not keep true to this law, and they will not circumcise their sons according to all this law. For in the flesh of their circumcision they will omit this circumcision of their sons, and all of their sons of Beliar will leave their sons uncircumcised as they were born. So right here it's saying that there's going to be some of Israel who are not going to circumcise their children. As you see here, it says all of the sons of Beliar will leave their sons uncircumcised. And then it says, "There will be great wrath from Yah against the children of Israel, because they have forsaken his covenant and turned aside from his word, and provoked Elohim and blasphemed, because they do not observe the ordinance of this law. For they have treated their genitalia like the Gentiles, so that they may be removed and rooted out of the land, and there will no more be pardon for forgiveness to them for all the sin of this eternal error." Wow. So it seems that here in the Book of Jubilees, it's making it's expounding on and kind of making it a bigger deal, the act of circumcision. And he's foretelling that certain ones from Israel are not going to circumcise their children. They're going to treat their genitalia just like the Gentiles. In other words, so they're not going to be separated, and they're not going to make this sign of the covenant. All right, chapter 16 says, "On the 4th new month, we appeared to Abraham." So when it says "we," it's saying the messenger angels that are going to Abraham. "At the oak of Mamre, and we talked with him, and we announced to him that Sarah, his wife, would give him a son. And Sarah laughed, for she heard that we had spoken these words to Abraham. And we warned her, and she became afraid, and denied that she had laughed because of the words. We told her the name of her son, as his name is ordained and written in the heavenly tablets, and it is Isaac." So this is saying that Isaac's name was already written in the heavenly tablets. "We told her that when we returned to her at a set time, she would have conceived a son. In this month, Yah executed his judgments on Sodom and Gomorrah and Zeboim and all the region of Jordan." Okay, so obviously the Book of Jubilees, or this translation, had to be written much later, because it's talking about Jordan and that region. You know, I can't say for sure exactly when Jordan was called Jordan, but it certainly wasn't during this time that all of this was taking place. But this is not just saying Sodom and Gomorrah. This is saying Sodom and Gomorrah and Zeboim and all the region of Jordan. "And he burned them with fire and brimstone and destroyed them, and they are destroyed until this day because of all their works. They are wicked and vast sinners, And they defile themselves and commit fornication in their flesh, and work uncleanliness on the earth, as I have told you. In like manner, Elohim will execute judgment on the places where they have done similar to the uncleanliness of the Sodomites. And they will suffer a judgment like that of Sodom. But for Lot we have made exception, for Elohim remembered Abraham and sent him out from the place of the overthrow. And he and his daughters committed sin on the earth, such as had not been done on the earth since the days of Adam until his time, for the man had sex with his daughters. So, yes, we know that the daughters of Lot, basically they thought that the whole earth had been destroyed and that they were the only survivors. And they thought that they had to have sex with their father to repopulate the earth, basically. Yes, Mandy. Israel's been under attack for like the past week. Yesterday, 150 rockets were fired into Israel. Thank God for the Iron Dome, but it is under attack, yes. It's very sad. It was commanded and engraved concerning all his offspring on the heavenly tablets, to remove them and root them out, and to execute judgment on them like the judgment of Sodom, and to leave no offspring of that man on earth on the day of condemnation. So it's saying here that basically, eventually, all of the children of Lot were not going to remain. In this month, Abraham moved from Hebron and departed and lived between Kadesh and Shur in the mountains of Gerar. In the middle of the 5th month, he moved from that place and lived at the well of Oath. In the middle of the 6th month, Yah visited Sarah and did to her as he had spoken, and she conceived. She gave birth to a son in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, at the time of which Yah had spoken to Abraham, on the festival of firstfruits of the harvest, Isaac was born. So this is saying that Isaac was born on firstfruits. That's interesting. Mandy says praying for Israel. Yes, we are praying for Israel. Abraham circumcised his son on the 8th day, and he was the first that was circumcised according to the covenant that is ordained forever. In the 6th year of the 4th week, we came to Abraham at the well of the oath, and we appeared to him. We returned in the 7th month and found Sarah with child before us, and we blessed him. And we announced to him all the things that had been decreed concerning him, so that he should not die until he should beget 6 more sons, and saw them before he died. But in Isaac should his name and offspring be called, and that all the offspring of his sons should be Gentiles, and be counted with the Gentiles. But from the sons of Isaac, one should become a pure offspring, and should not be counted among the Gentiles. Okay, so this is what this is saying. It's saying that in Isaac should his name and offspring be called, and that all the offspring of his sons should be Gentiles. Basically, I mean, I don't know how many more sons Isaac had. It just mentions Jacob and Esau. But this is saying that all of Isaac's sons would be considered Gentiles. But from the sons of Isaac, only one should become a pure offspring, and should not be counted among the Gentiles. So I'm assuming that's Jacob. It's very possible that Isaac and Rebekah had more sons and daughters. It's very plausible because, they didn't have birth control back then, but they're not mentioned, but it's very possible that he did. For he should become the portion of the Most High, and all his offspring had fallen into the possession of Elohim, that they should be to Yah a people for his possession above all nations, and that they should become a kingdom and priests and a pure nation. We went our way, and we announced to Sarah all that we had told him, and they both rejoiced with very great joy. He built there an altar to Yah who had delivered him, and who was causing him to rejoice in the land of his sojourning. And he celebrated a festival of joy in the month for 7 days. So the festival for joy for 7 days, that is Sukkot, or Feast of Tabernacles, near the altar which he had built at the well of Oath. He built tents for himself and for his servants on this festival, and he was the first to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles on the earth. So this is saying that Abraham celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles on the earth. It's actually saying that he was the first one. During these 7 days, he brought a burnt offering to Yah each day to the altar, consisting of 2 oxen, 2 rams, 7 sheep, 1 male goat, for a sin offering, that he might atone thereby for himself and for his offspring. As an offspring of thanks, he brought 7 rams, 7 kids, 7 sheep, and 7 male goats, and their fruit offerings and their drink offerings, and he burnt all of the fat on the altar, a chosen offering to Yah for a sweet-smelling odor. Morning and evening he burnt fragrant substances, frankincense and incense, and sweet spices and nard, myrrh and spice and aromatic plants. All these 7 he offered crushed, mixed together in equal parts and pure. And he celebrated this feast during 7 days, rejoicing with all his heart and with all his soul, and all those who were in his house, and there was no stranger with him, nor any that was uncircumcised. He blessed the Creator who had created him in his generation, for he had created him according to his good pleasure. Elohim knew and perceived that from him would arise the plant of righteousness for the eternal generations. Hi, Crystal. So glad you can make it. Listen, it's better late than never. So check this out. I'm going to highlight this. This says, he blessed the Creator who had created him in his generation, for he had created him according to his good pleasure. Elohim knew and perceived that from him would arise the plant of righteousness for eternal generations, and from him a pure offspring, so that it should become like him who had made all things. This plant of righteousness is speaking about the Messiah. That's interesting. He blessed and rejoiced and called the name of this festival the festival of Yah, a joy acceptable to the Most High. And we blessed him forever and all his offspring after him throughout all the generations of the earth, because he celebrated this festival in its season according to the testimony of heavenly tablets. So now it's still referring to this this festival of Sukkot, which is Feast of Tabernacles, also known as the season of our joy. And it's saying that this is according to the heavenly tablets. For this reason, it is ordained in the heavenly tablets concerning Israel that they shall celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days with joy in the 7th month, acceptable before Yah as a statute forever throughout their generations every year. To this there is no limit of days, for it is ordained forever regarding Israel that they should celebrate it and dwell in tents, and set wreaths on their heads, and take leafy boughs and willows from the brook. Abraham took branches of palm trees and the fruit of good and pleasing trees, and every day going around the altar with the branches 7 times a day in the morning, he praised and gave thanks to his Elohim for all things in joy. So this is basically saying that the Feast of Tabernacles did not start at Mount Sinai, or when the Torah was given to Israel in the wilderness. Chapter 17. In the first year of the 5th week, Isaac was weaned in this Jubilee, and Abraham was made a great banquet in the 3rd month, on the day his son Isaac was weaned. Ishmael, the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, was in front of Abraham his father in his place, and Abraham rejoiced and blessed Elohim because he had seen his sons and had not died childless. He remembered the words which he had spoken to him on the day that Lot had departed from him, and he rejoiced because Yah had given him offspring on the earth to inherit the earth, and he blessed with all his mouth the Creator of all things. Sarah saw Ishmael playing and dancing, and Abraham rejoiced with great joy, and she became jealous of Ishmael and said to Abraham, "Throw out this bondwoman and her son. The son of this bondwoman will not be heir with my son Isaac." And the situation was troubling to Abraham because of his maidservant and because of his son, because he did not want to drive them from him. Elohim said to Abraham, "Let it not be troubling in your sight because of the child and because of the bondwoman. Listen to Sarah and to all her words, and do them. For in Isaac shall your name and your offspring be called." "But as for the son of this bondwoman, I will make him a great nation, because he is of your offspring." Abraham got up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and placed them on the shoulders of Hagar and the child and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba, and the water in the bottle was spent, and the child was thirsty and was not able to go on and fell down. So basically they were dying of thirst in the desert. His mother took him and laid him under an olive tree and went and sat her down away from him at the distance of a bow shot. For she said, "Let me not see the death of my child." And she sat and wept. So now check this out and see just how merciful Elohim is. Yahuwah is very merciful even to those who were not chosen to build this nation of Israel. A messenger of Elohim, one of the pure ones, said to her, "Why do you weep, Hagar? Stand, take the child, and hold him in your hand, for Elohim has heard your voice, and he has seen the child." She opened her eyes, and she saw the well of water, and she went and filled her bottle with water. And she gave her child a drink, and she arose and went towards the wilderness of Paran. And the child grew and became an archer, and Elohim was with him, and his mother took him a wife among the daughters of Egypt. So Ishmael is going to marry one of the daughters of Egypt. Because remember, Ishmael's mother was an Egyptian. She gave birth to a son, the wife, and called his name Nebaioth. For she said, "Yah was close to me when I called on him." In the 7th week, in the 1st year of it, in the 1st month in this Jubilee, on the 12th of this month, there were voices in heaven regarding Abraham, and that he was faithful in all that he told him, and that he loved Yah, and that in every affliction he was faithful. Prince Mastema came and asked before Elohim, look, Abraham loves Isaac his son, and he delights in him above all things. Tell him to offer him as a burnt offering on the altar, and you will see if he will do this command, and you will know if he is faithful in every way that you test him. This is very similar to the book of Job. We don't see this happening in the book of Genesis. We just see, God asking Abraham to go sacrifice his son. But we don't see, Satan, Lucifer, some fallen angel, Mastema. We don't see anyone going to... I'm sorry, excuse me. We don't see anyone going to the Almighty and, just like in the book of Job, where he says, oh, look at Job. He just has everything, but, strike him, take everything away from him and see him curse you to your face. So this is very similar of the book of Job. He's saying, look, Abraham loves his son Isaac. Have him sacrifice him, and you will know if he's faithful. Yah knew that Abraham was faithful throughout all his afflictions, for he had tried him through his country and with famine, and he had tried him with the wealth of kings, and he tried him again through his wife, when she was torn from him, and with circumcision, and had tried him through Ishmael and Hagar, his maidservant, when he sent them away. And everything that he had tried him, he was found faithful, and his soul was not impatient, and he was not slow to act, because he was faithful and a lover of Yah. Chapter 18. Elohim said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, look, here I am. He said, take your beloved son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the high country and offer him on one of the mountains which I will point out to you. He got up early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 young men with him and Isaac his son, and split the wood of the burnt offering, and he went to the place on the 3rd day and saw the place afar off. He came to a well of water near Mount Moriah, and he said to his young men, you stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad shall go yonder, and when we have worshipped, we shall come back to you. He took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took the fire and the knife, and they went both of them together to that place. Isaac said to his father, Father? He said, here I am, my son. He said to him, look, we have the fire and the knife and the wood, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering, father? He said, Elohim will provide for himself a sheep for a burnt offering, my son. And he neared the place of the mountain of Elohim. He built an altar, and he placed the wood on the altar, and bound Isaac his son, and placed him on the wood that was on the altar, and stretched out his hand to take the knife to kill Isaac his son. I stood in the presence of him, and before Prince Mastema, and the pure messengers stood and wept over the altar, as Prince Mastema and his messengers rejoiced and said, Isaac will be destroyed, and we will see if Abraham is faithful. And Yah said, command him not to lay his hand on the lad, nor to do anything to him, for I have shown that he fears Yah. So here you have, I'm just going to pause here for a second. So here you have the holy angels, okay? The holy angels of heaven watching this and weeping over the altar because of what's about to happen. And then you have the unholy angels watching this and rejoicing. This is basically saying that they were happy because this was going to be the fall of Abraham, watching his son die. We do not read that in the book of Genesis. I called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he was terrified and said, "Here I am." He said, "Lay not your hand on the lad, neither do anything to him. For now I have shown that you fear Yah, and have not withheld your son, your firstborn son, from me." Prince Mastema was put to shame and was bound by the messengers. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and saw a ram caught by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham called that place Yah has seen, so that it is said that Yah has seen. This is Mount Zion. Yah called Abraham by his name a second time from heaven, as he caused us to appear to speak to him in the name of Yah. But he said, "By myself I have sworn," said Yah, "because you have done this thing, you have not withheld your son, your beloved son, from me, that in blessing I will bless you, and in multiplying I will multiply your offspring, as the stars of heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. Your offspring shall inherit the cities of its enemies, and in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice, and I have shown to all that you are faithful to me. In all that I have said to you, go in peace." Abraham went back to his young men, and they stood and went back together to Beersheba. And Abraham lived by the well of the oath. And he celebrated this festival every year, 7 days with joy, and he called it the festival of Yah, according to the 7 days, during which he went and returned in peace. Accordingly, it has been ordained and written in the heavenly tablets regarding Israel and his children, that they should observe this festival 7 days with joy of festival. All right, chapter 19. 2 more chapters and we're done, okay, guys? In the first year of the first week in the 42nd Jubilee, Abraham returned and lived across from Hebron and Kirjath Arba for 2 weeks of years. So this is actually, before it was called Hebron, this was the name of Hebron before it was actually called Hebron. In the first year of the 3rd week of this Jubilee, the days of the life of Sarah were complete, and she died in Hebron. Abraham went to mourn over her and bury her, and we tested him to see if his spirit was patient. And he had neither anger nor contempt in the words of his mouth, and he was found patient in this and was not disturbed. In patience of spirit, he discussed with the children of Heth that they should give him a place in which to bury his dead. And Yah gave him grace before all who saw him, and he asked the sons of Heth in gentleness, and they gave him the land of the double cave over beside Mamre, that is Hebron, for 400 pieces of silver. They said to him, "We shall give it to you for nothing." But he would not take it from them for nothing, for he gave the price of the place and paid the money in full. And he bowed down before them twice, and after this he buried his dead in the double cave. All the days of the life of Sarah were 127 years. That is 2 jubilees and 4 weeks in 1 year. These are the days of the years of the life of Sarah. This is the 10th trial with which Abraham was tested, and he was found faithful and patient in spirit. He did not say a single word regarding the rumor in the land of how Elohim had said that he would give to him and his offspring after him. But instead he begged for a place there to bury his dead, because he was found faithful. It was recorded in the heavenly tablets that he was the friend of Elohim. In the 4th year of it, the Jubilee, he took a wife for his son. Okay, I'm going to continue. In the 4th year, he took a wife for his son Isaac, and her name was Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Nahor, the brother of Abraham, the sister of Laban, the daughter of Bethuel. And Bethuel was the son of Milcah, who was the wife of Nahor, the brother of Abraham. Abraham took to himself a 3rd wife from among the daughters of his household servants. Okay, so this is confusing because it says took to himself. Okay, so yeah, Hagar, Sarah. Okay. And we do see this in the book of Genesis. We see in the book of Genesis that Abraham does remarry after Sarah passes. From among the daughters of his household servants, for Hagar had died before Sarah, and her name was Keturah. So we do see that in the book of Genesis, that Abraham remarries, and that is to Keturah. And she gave birth to 6 sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Midian. This is where we get the Medes and the Midianites, Ishbak, and Shua, in the 2 weeks of years. In the 6th week, in the 2nd year of it, Rebekah gave birth to 2 sons of Isaac, Jacob and Esau. And Jacob had no beard, and was a straight and tall man who dwelt in tents. Esau was a very powerful man of the field and was hairy. So I'm assuming that Jacob and Esau were not identical twins. They were probably fraternal twins. That's why they looked so different. And apparently Esau was very hairy. Jacob didn't have any hair, and he dwelt in the tent. And Esau was a man of the field. And you will see very frequently throughout Scripture, typically if someone is a man of the field, that just means they're a man of the world. They're not really into godly things. Jacob was a homebody. He stayed home, was taught the Scriptures, studied the Scriptures, learned about God. Esau, on the other hand, was not like that. He was a man of the world. He liked to go out and hunt. And typically, anytime in the Word you see someone who is a hunter, that is usually a negative thing. They are considered someone who is worldly and does not consult God. So the youths grew, and Jacob learned to write, but Esau did not learn, for he was a man of the field and a hunter, and he learned war, and all his deeds were fierce. Abraham loved Jacob, but Isaac loved Esau. So, just so you know, in the book of Genesis, we do see that Isaac loved Esau a little bit more, because he would bring him meat that he loved and all of this. But we don't see that Abraham loved Jacob. That's not mentioned in the book of Genesis. And Abraham saw the deeds of Esau, and he knew that in Jacob should his name and offspring be called. He called Rebekah and gave commandment regarding Jacob, for he knew that she too loved Jacob much more than Esau. So, just to pause again, in the book of Genesis, we see that Rebekah loved Jacob more than Esau. But it doesn't say that it was because of Abraham. This is telling us that Abraham gave commandment regarding Jacob to Rebekah. In other words, that, because, obviously we see in the book of Genesis that Rebekah is making sure that Jacob receives the blessings. This here in the book of Jubilees is telling us because Abraham commanded her, basically saying that Jacob was going to carry on the name and the offspring. He said to her, "My daughter, watch over my son Jacob, for he shall take my place on the earth. He shall be a blessing throughout the children of men, and for the glory of all the offspring of Shem. I'm just going to pause here for a second. See, this is interesting because we don't see any of that in the book of Genesis, but it makes sense that from Shem, you know, all of the writings, all of the knowledge of Yahuwah and his ways were going to be passed down. And Abraham certainly would have made sure, you know, that his son and his, you know, he says my son because back then they didn't say grandson. They considered their grandson to be their son, and so on. But we don't we don't see all of this happening in the book of Genesis. We just see, you know, it just sort of cuts to the next chapter and you're like, oh, okay. But this is explaining that Abraham went to Rebekah to discuss Jacob. It says here, I know that Yah will choose him to be a people and a possession to himself, above all peoples that are on the face of the earth. Isaac, my son, loves Esau more than Jacob, but I see that you truly love Jacob. Add still further to your kindness to him and regard him in love, for he shall be a blessing to us on the earth, from now on to all generations of the earth. Let your hands be strong and let your heart rejoice in your son Jacob, for I have loved him far beyond all my sons. He shall be blessed forever, and his offspring shall fill the whole earth. If a man can number the sand of the earth, his offspring shall also be numbered. And all the blessings with which Yah has blessed me, and my offspring shall belong to Jacob and his offspring always. In his offspring shall my name be blessed, and the name of my fathers, Shem, Noah, Enoch, Mahaliel, Enos, Seth, and Adam. And these shall serve to lay the foundations of the heaven, and to straighten the earth, and to renew all the stars which are in the sky. This is very interesting. We do not see this in Enoch at all. I'm sorry. In the book of Genesis. We don't see this in the book of Genesis at all. You know, he's saying that that Jacob is going to follow his fathers, and he names all of them that went before him. And that they shall serve to lay the foundations of the heaven, to strengthen the earth, and to renew all the stars which are in the sky. He called Jacob and kissed him in front of Rebekah his mother. And he blessed him and said, Jacob is my beloved son, whom my soul loves. May Elohim bless you from above the sky, and may he give you all the blessings with which he blessed Adam, Enoch, Noah, and Shem. And all the things of which he told me, and all the things which he promised to give me. May he cause to be yours and your offspring forever, according to the days of heaven above the earth. And the spirits of Mastema shall not rule over you, or over your offspring, or turn you from Yah, who is your Elohim from now on forever. May Yah Elohim be a father to you, and may you be like his firstborn son, and to the people always. Go in peace, my son. And they both went out together from Abraham. Rebekah loved Jacob with all her heart and with all her soul, very much more than Esau, but Isaac loved Esau more than Jacob. See, we don't see any of the fathers before interacting with the next generation. It's just kind of odd. Like, in the book of Genesis, we don't see Abraham interacting with Isaac or Isaac and Jacob and Esau. We just don't see it, and it's strange because I'm sure they lived together or lived in close proximity. All right, last chapter, chapter 20 says, in the 42nd Jubilee, in the first year of the 7th week, Abraham called Ishmael and his 12 sons, and Isaac and his 2 sons, and the 6 sons of Keturah and their sons. And he commanded them that they should observe the way of Yah, and that they should work righteousness, and shall love his neighbor, and act in this manner among all men, and that they should each walk with regard to the way of Yah, to do judgment and righteousness in the earth. He commanded them that they should circumcise their sons according to the covenant which Elohim had made with them, and not deviate to the right or to the left of all the paths which Yah had commanded us, and that we should keep ourselves from all fornication and uncleanliness. He said, if any woman or maid commits fornication among you, burn her with fire, and do not let them commit fornication with her with their eyes or their heart, and do not let them take themselves wives from the daughters of Canaan, because the offspring of Canaan will be rooted out of the land. He told them about the judgment on the giants and the judgment on the Sodomites, how they had been judged because of their wickedness and had died because of their fornication and uncleanliness and corruption through fornication together. So you see here, there is a pattern, okay? So you have the fallen angels who commit this great great act of sin, which was fornication with those they were not supposed to be with, because Yah had not given them wives. So you see a pattern after that Yahuwah is bringing like major judgment upon societies that allow debaucherous fornication to occur. So the Sodomites, the giants, the Nephilim, all these things that they were doing. It seems like the Book of Jubilees is drawing this line from the fallen ones, the fallen angels, the giants, this line all the way down to, be very careful that you do not lust after these women and commit fornication with them in your hearts or in your mind, so as not to commit a sin like the fallen ones did. So we don't see this in the book of Genesis, where Abraham's telling them about the judgment of the giants or the judgment of the Sodomites. He said, guard yourselves from all fornication and uncleanliness, and from all pollution of sin, or you will make our name a curse, and our whole life a shame, and all your sons to be destroyed by the sword. And you will become a curse like Sodom, and all that is left of you shall be as the sons of Gomorrah. I implore you, my sons, love the Elohim of heaven and cling to all his commandments. Do not walk after their idols and after the ways of uncleanliness, and do not make yourselves molten or graven deities. These are empty, and there is no spirit in them, for they are work of men's hands, and all who trust in them trust in nothing. Do not serve them nor worship them, but serve the Most High Elohim, and worship him continually, and hope for his presence always. And work uprightness and righteousness before him, that he may have pleasure in you and grant you his mercy, and send rain to you morning and evening, and bless all your works which you have performed on earth, and bless your bread and your water, and bless the fruit of your womb, and the fruit of your land, and the herds of your cattle, and the flocks of your sheep. You will be a blessing on the earth, and all nations of the earth will desire you. And bless your sons in my name, that they may be blessed as I am. I gave to Ishmael and to his sons and to the sons of Keturah gifts, and sent them away from Isaac his son. And he gave everything to Isaac. So Isaac basically inherited everything. So he gave certain things to the sons of Keturah and to Ishmael and his sons. But the majority of everything was given to Isaac. Ishmael and his sons, and the sons of Keturah and their sons, went together and settled from Paran to the border of Babylon, and all the land that is towards the east, facing the desert. These mingled and intermarried with each other, and their names were called Arabs and Ishmaelites. Okay, so this is very interesting here. So Ishmael and his sons, and the sons of Keturah, which came from Abraham, they all settled together and intermarried together. And this is what would be considered the Ishmaelites or the Arabs today. That's what the book of Jubilees says about it. So basically, the Book of Jubilees is saying that the Arabs today, well, predominantly, are the offspring of Ishmael, and then also the sons of Keturah, which were the other sons of Abraham. And they all intermarried and became one people group. And you will also see, I'm pretty sure you'll see it in the Book of Jubilees, but you see it in the Book of Genesis, that Esau kind of goes off with Ishmael as well. He kind of leans towards his uncle. Okay? So very interesting. We get a little bit more information that we don't see in the Book of Genesis. And we're going to finish up with, we're going to continue with chapter 21 next Tuesday. And hopefully this Shabbat, hopefully on Shabbat, we'll be able to continue our, we're going to finish up the book of Exodus. We are going to be done with the book of Exodus, and then we're going to get into the book of Leviticus. And this is where most of the laws are contained. Okay? And basically, they're just laws on how we're to love our God, Yahuwah, and how we are to love our neighbor. Okay? Amen? So glad you guys were able to make it. Hope to see you this Shabbat. God's willing, it will be this Shabbat. And hope to see you next Tuesday. We will continue our Book of Jubilees study. We'll pick up in chapter 21 next Tuesday. And very interesting indeed. Hope to see you then. Hope you guys have a blessed rest of the week. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.